on Twitter.
All right, cool. Welcome everybody. Good afternoon. We are with the Naked Ape. That is
Hey.
Naked Ape. What's up?
I said, hey.
Oh, Naked Ape on Twitter, Naked Ape on YouTube, and I'm not sure. Do you do anything else other than that?
I mean, no, not really. It's just Twitter and YouTube. That's where I hang out. It's where I shitpost.
Yeah, and quite a shit poster you are. I gotta hand it to you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. I just posted the link in the chat. All right, so I've been watching some of your videos or your debates, and they're with people like Spinosaurus Kin and this guy ZZZ, and of course, most recently, Destiny. And it is some of the most upsetting things I've ever listened to. I honestly don't know how you feel with it.
How?
I mean,
what do you mean?
Okay, so like with ZZZ, there was that. Okay, so you're arguing about socialism in there, and
oh yeah, that guy.
You keep telling him like, okay, well, what you're advocating for is actually this, and he's like, no, it's not, and like he doesn't substantiate anything, and then he goes on and I quote, I'm not going to sit here and say that communism has never been tried because it has, and then he says, not even 3 seconds later, but socialism has never existed. And
well, I mean, the thing is that he's actually technically true about that. I don't necessarily want to say that socialism has been tried, but communism has never existed, because communism can't exist. Communism is actually this post-government utopia where it's technically a form of like it's like communism and anarcho-communism are the same thing. Like they just simply believe once you collectivize everything, then the government will cease existing. Which is the stupidest shit I've ever fucking heard.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I mean, that's really what they believe. So that's why I didn't challenge him on that, because communism technically is a society where, you know, the state doesn't exist and it's just this community oriented thing, you know, which, you know, is actually a government.
Yeah.
Which I had fun pointing out in that argument several times, that no, that actually is a government. And he has no idea what governments have looked like throughout history. But anyway, that's old. That was an old debate. I almost fucking forgot about that debate. That was like a long time ago. Did you see the one that I did with the guy who was Bernie Sanders' friend and then got red pilled by Ayn Rand and Murray Rothbard to be an anarcho-capitalist? What was his name? I have it on the Western Front. Walter Block. That's who I was talking to recently.
Walter Block. What exactly happened there? I mean, to go all the way to Ayn Rand from Bernie Sanders, that's quite a...
I fucking know. Apparently, he just met Ayn Rand and talked to her, and that like literally like Ayn Rand and some other person. I don't remember like all the names. Like he was dropping names like I dropped gold bars, I guess. I don't know. He was dropping a lot of these fucking names. It was ridiculous. His life is a story. I'm surprised, by the way, about how much networking I've been able to do through YouTube. Like I'm surprised at like the amount of people I've been able to meet, and some people like, you know, like contributors to Fox News and things like that, like actually giving me a lot of respect for shit posting on YouTube. And I'm like, dude, stop it. This like, what are you doing? Like nobody should take me seriously. I don't even know why I'm here talking to you. Nobody should take me seriously. This is not something that I do as like a serious thing. This is something I do as pure entertainment. I've explained this before. I do YouTube purely as some kind of cathartic release for me. It's a very very cathartic, very in the gutter emotional response for me. It's nothing important. But anyway, you were saying you've seen a lot of my debates, and they made you feel upset. What did you want to talk about them?
So a few terms in one of them was your use of the term determinist view of history. Now, what exactly does that mean?
Well, I've sort of shifted in the terminology that I use. I actually now prefer the term Faustian because I think it's more accurate. I'm borrowing that from the book. I can't remember the author's name because I haven't actually read it, but I've read about the book and I've bought it off Amazon and it will be arriving shortly. But it's the book, The Decline of the West. And I think Faustian is really a more accurate way to describe how our society works. And like as an example, I was on a stream yesterday with people with like the mods of 4chan's poll, which I never go to, by the way. I've never been on poll, but I've been, I was interviewed, I was on a stream with them, and they were talking about the JQ, the Jewish question. And this is why I want to say I'm not actually all that extreme. Fuck you, Republicans. I'm not actually all that extreme. I was arguing against the Jewish question, defending Jews from those evil internet Nazis, because it's not just some like Jewish thing. It's not some overarching conspiracy. The problem within our culture is that we view progress as this ultimate good above everything. And that exists in colonialism and anti-colonialism. The white man's burden is this view of progress as the higher good on the backs of the white people. And then you see multiculturalism, which is also progress as the highest good off of the back of the white people. It's not, this anti-white narrative. It's not this Jewish narrative. It's progress. It's this view of this Faustian ultimate utopian progress that we've had in our society for so long that is driving these cynical moral justifications for everything that is plaguing our society. So that's what I meant when I meant like this deterministic view. It's sort of the view that progress is good, progress is necessary, and progress is also inevitable. And specifically, I could take the page out of Dialectical Materialism, which views society's progress as this inevitable evolution of the history of class conflict. But I mean, you can see this deterministic view of history in outside of Marxism too. It's even when you talk about capitalist or right-wing capitalism, the view we must do this capitalist XYZ for the progress of society, like things like free trade, things like immigration. It's always wrapped up in this deterministic view of history with this Faustian sense of progress as the ultimate good. That's generally what I was talking about.
I think it's interesting that you bring up the Jewish question, because back in November we were supposed to have Edgy Sphinx on, and then he fell off the face of the earth. I don't know what happened, but yeah, can you go into depth about what that actually is?
Really? Okay. All right. So the Jewish question, it's like the final solution to the Jewish question. Like that's basically like what it is. It's like the belief that Jews are some kind of corrosive force on society. And if you really want me to go in depth on it, I can. This is an interesting conversation. I don't necessarily believe in the Jewish question, although I know where it comes from. And this isn't all Jews. This is necessarily something racial or genetic. I think there is a cultural trend for Jews to have a certain view of history because of their own experience with it. So because of the Holocaust, because of the persecution they faced, there's this cultural trend. Again, this isn't all Jews. This isn't generalizing. There's a cultural trend amongst many Jews to view Western civilization as their own personal enemy, right? Like their experience in history has been colored by the Holocaust and the pogroms that they faced. So obviously they're going to view, cultural things like cultural hegemony, Western civilization, and Western traditions with with an increased amount of skepticism. And this combined with a sense of landlessness, makes them want there not to be a strong landed people, because like when you look at psychologically and evolutionary, like the kind of rational self-interest that a people without a land would have, a people without a land, that don't necessarily have their own country, necessarily have to live in someone else's country, right? And the only way for them to be able to live in someone else's country is if that country accepts multiple people within its fold, right? So that means that Jews necessarily have to be for multiculturalism because they are another culture living in another people's land. Like it's different in the United States because we aren't this exclusive society in the same way that Europe, in the same way that Europe, France has always been French in a very ethnic sense, and Germany has always been German in an ethnic sense. The United States, I guess you could say we're the most Jewish society ever because we don't have this necessarily landed ethnic peoples historical narrative in the same way that Europe does, which is why they've been able to flourish within our society so much. And that's one thing that I think is a good thing. And again, this isn't me saying that this is all correct. This is me explaining the Jewish question. I hope that that's clear. That's me explaining what the Jewish question is and why people think it. This isn't me siding with it. But so you get a mix of like these people. Again, not all Jews, but some Jews who have this negative view of Western civilization and of having nationalism, etc., and this need for them to have a multicultural society in order for them to exist, and that sort of colors their politics, their society, and their philosophy as a simple matter of self-preservation. So then the Jewish question is, well, what do you do with these people if they're advocating against your own existence in your nation? Like if you're a German or if you believe in the supremacy of your people in your own land, if you're like a white supremacist or whatever, what do you do about people in your land who don't want you to be supreme? Well, you have to kill them. That's basically it. That's the only solution to that problem, and that accurately describes the Jewish question. Yeah, I'm not someone who subscribes to the Jewish question. A, because I think it's based on a lot of conspiratorial understandings of history, and B, because I think there are Jews on both sides of the political spectrum. And I think that this like sort of generalization and viewing this cultural trend as an absolute is illogical and wrong on the face of it. But I understand why people think about the Jewish question. It's again because of like Tim Wise is an example. White people need to be eradicated, and that's good. That's good. It's good for you whites to be eradicated. That's like there are people out there that exist like that. And that stir up this anti-Jewish sentiment with their I think the term is Loxism, their hatred of the goyim. There are some Jews who do have that, and that's a problem. It's a problem with racial relations all over the place. That extremists use other extremists to justify their extremism, and like black racists use white racists to justify their racism, and vice versa. And that's where I think the Jewish question comes from. And that's, again, one of the reasons I don't subscribe to it. But, yeah, that was a quick rundown in the Jewish question. This is an interesting conversation for a college Republican club to have, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to, I guess, expose them because most of them are pretty, I guess, neocon. Expose them to different things, and sometimes they don't really like it.
Really? How are they allowing you to continue to expose them if exposed? How are they allowing you to exist there if they don't like it? Like, how is that happening?
Because I gave them like exposure publicly. Like I've done TV interviews locally, and now the university actually knows who we are. So
wow. So they don't like the fact that you're actually helping them so much, but they don't like that fact. That's this is going to be played to them like live, not live, but this is going to be played to them, so they're going to see you talking shit.
Oh no, they know where I stand. Like 4 people left because of like I was telling you earlier. Like, they don't like the way I do things sometimes. Anyway, before we go too much into that. You also use tautology. I think it was to describe how Marxists view failures of Marxism. Now, what is that exactly?
Tautology? Man, it's been a while since I've used that word. Like you're using all these words that I used to describe reality like a long while ago. Like I'm not a professor. These aren't like jargon. It's just words that I find useful. You know, this is like a utility. A sort of tautology is like a philosophical sense. Today, I would use a priori, or a posteriori. I always fuck it up. A posteriori. I always say a post priori, but that's not true. It's a posteriori. Fuck, I cannot pronounce that for the life of me.
So good.
Like a tautology is like this this assumption about, like the way I understand it or the way I used it is like this assumption about reality, right? So right, like I googled it just to like, so tautology, it's been a while, a statement that is true by necessity or by virtue of its logical form. So it's like something that is true, that you hold to be true, that you hold to be absolute before you visit reality. So that's generally what I was using that for.
So that's where they use the whole like, well, true Marxism or true communism has never been implemented. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
No, not necessarily. I mean, if you want to talk about this in terms of Marxism, then their tautology would be that history is the history of class conflict. That's the tautology of Marxism. So they go in with that assumption about reality whenever they look at other history. And, you know, for some reason, when you have this kind of bias, you're able to project that bias on reality a lot. So they see that class conflict everywhere. So that's, you know, that's what I'm talking about with tautologies and a priori assumptions.
Okay, cool. And then the last term before we get into everything is fallacy of composition.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Have I really used that much?
Yeah, you did.
Huh.
Like
Fallacy. Wow, where did I use that?
Spinosaurus kin, ZZ, and I think ZZ twice.
Fuck. Well, yeah, fallacy of composition. I think it's also known as genetic fallacy. That's when you like assume one thing is like exactly like the other thing. Like the only example I can think about right now is my debate with Destiny, where he tried to assert that free trade is similar to mass migration in you know, in this argument, and it's not. You know, like or I guess it's like if something is true somewhere, it's not also true somewhere else, right? So if I say that, you know, like let's say as an example, Muslims in migration, they're in Germany. This is a real statistic. I'm probably going to fub it up a little bit, but around 30,000 out of the million migrants who have fled to Germany have actually found jobs. And only 52 of them have been highly specialized jobs. 52 out of a million. And I'm not kidding you with that number. That's accurate. So, but you can't, you know, generalize that into like Mexican immigration or into the United States immigration. But yeah, that's generally what a fallacy of composition is. It's like, I think it's similar to the genetic fallacy.
Okay. Man, I got into an argument with some old friends, and that's why they're old friends, about immigration from Mexico and the whole illegal problem. And
you are just like, you love pissing people off, don't you?
I really do.
Like, that's what this is all fucking about for you, is just pissing people. You know, I'm going to tell you, I respect that. No joke. I respect that need to piss people off. That's why I do YouTube, is to piss people off. Continue your story.
Yeah. Well, it just, their understanding was so dumb. It fucking made my head spin. Like I've had my Marxist professors come up with better arguments than they had, and I think they're fucking idiots. Well, one of them was saying like, how come these people are complaining about their jobs? These people don't even know English. And I was like, well, dumbass, it's not that. It's because they can take a lower wage. The employer doesn't have to pay taxes on it. They don't have to pay benefits on them. And it's all under the table. So they're saving a lot of money.
Yeah, it fucking pisses. I'm going to tell you, it pisses the workers off. My boyfriend at work, at one of his jobs, there's someone there who's just out and out an illegal that works there, right? I mean, we need to call ICE, basically. I don't know why we haven't yet. But I mean, the thing is that they get paid cash under the table. And it's like, man, why can't I get paid cash under the table? I'd love to not have to. And, you know, it's just, why the fuck are they getting this benefit that we aren't? And there is a lot of benefits to being illegal. You know, you get you don't have to pay taxes. I mean, you still get to benefit from welfare. You still get to benefit from, you know, like education and all of the taxes that everybody else fucking pays into this goddamn society. But they don't got to pay shit. It's the most ridiculous fucking thing I've ever fucking heard. Anyway, go on.
Well, yeah. Then one of them was like, talking about, well, then something. Why did these people pick and choose what job they want? And she showed me like Facebook posts of people saying, all right, I'm looking for a job, but not a call center, not a restaurant. And I said, well, because those people don't have to work the job. Like there's not many jobs there's not any jobs that Americans have been proven not to take. It's just that they can't afford to go as low as the illegal immigrants go.
Yeah.
And so then she went into, well, then why are they complaining about not getting jobs because of illegals? It's like, those aren't the same people. Like,
well, yeah, not necessarily. Those aren't necessarily the same people. She's trying to make an argument against one person. That's something that I've seen people do, like generally. In politics, it happens where, you know, you're making an argument against, you know, the quote unquote opposition. And whenever you find a member of the quote unquote opposition, you want to project all of those arguments on them. It's basically the reason why I think that conservatives are so much more intellectual and able to express their ideas, because conservatives are always confronted with different opposition views. Whereas liberals are just, you know, spoon-fed this disgusting late-night regurgitation of their own beliefs, and all they have to do is just, hey, I remember this on John Oliver. Where's the laugh track? Haha. And, you know, that's just what they do. They have these arguments that they're spoon-fed, and they just get to regurgitate them. Well, I mean, you're going to ask me to pay for more expensive strawberries because you want to keep your job, you dirty American? That's racist. Laugh track, huh? You know, it's just, it's this sloppy thinking, this inability
it's just a bunch of circle jerking, and then, you know, then I get them all pissed off, and then in class, like, they'll shout at me, and then I'm just laughing in the face.
My dude, I fucking love you. You need to have a YouTube channel. You need to fucking do this. You need to be like a correspondent somewhere. Like you need to work for Bill O'Reilly. He would hire an asshole like you.
That would be great. Maybe after I graduate, because right now I have to kind of like tone it down.
What are you going for? What are you going for?
Actually, American literature.
Oh, dude, why? That is a terrible idea. Why are you going for American literature?
My mom graduated from UTEP in English, and then she did some small-time authorship. And then I was like, well, I always wanted to do that. And I did accounting for a little while, and I fucking hated it. And yeah, so I switched after, like, I had this life-changing experience. I was in the hospital for a week, and yeah. So morphine's a hell of a drug, basically.
Yeah. That's a fucking terrible major, dude. Like, you're not gonna get you're gonna be like working at Starbucks, you know, like pissing people off. You know, buying that fucking Starbucks isn't gonna make you any more liberal. It's not gonna help anybody out. You know that organic produced coffee isn't actually gonna help any of the natives out, right? You don't know, just that kind of shit. It's just,
yeah, Che Guevara was a cuck, and just like
right.
Hide behind the counter.
Yeah, that's not gonna work out very well for you. You need to get like a. I mean, honest to God, people need to stop going to college. People need to stop going to college and start going to trade school.
I think I made the mistake of just going for that third year, and I was like, well, might as well finish. So yeah, I mean, I want to go into like a professorship, but maybe at like a junior college, because it'd be much easier to find work than at a university, and I'd spend less money and less time trying to do it. Yeah.
I mean, you might want to think about that, dude. Like, you know, you can go for carpentry or something like that. I couldn't do carpentry. I'm a stupid fucking idiot. I can't do labor. I can't do manual labor. I just don't have the mentality for it. It's just not for me. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's just not something that I can do. But I mean,
I used to do a lot of construction and demo work with my dad and my stepmom's dad, because he was.
I don't know, man. Maybe you should think about doing that. Because I mean, like, I'm gonna tell you the honest truth. If you want to actually get into media, there's no fucking reason you should even try to get a degree in media.
Yeah.
Like if you get a degree in journalism, it's just a wasted fucking opportunity. Like if you're gonna actually have a career in journalism, you either make it or you don't. You know, and you can make it just as easily in new media on YouTube, being like an independent journalist, like how Tim Pool, I think it was, who got paid to go to Sweden, like that guy doing that kind of independent journalism. You can do just as well doing like what Lauren Southern did. She was a bit, made it big. I mean, I'm pretty sure she makes good money with how the kind of social media platform she has before she even, got out of college. So it's like, if you want to make it, you're going to make it. But, other than that, it's just like, making it in media, making it in this stuff, in these kind of things. You either do it or you don't. And a degree doesn't really help you learn anything except for the skills, and you can learn the skills by doing it anyway. So,
Yeah. I mean, I would go into like manual labor, but I have like significant nerve damage now on my right arm. So
yeah. Well, I don't know what to say, man. That's just a terrible degree. That really fucking is.
Yeah. I don't know. I was like, well, I've been poor my whole life, so fuck it. I could work 2 jobs for the rest of it.
Dude, oh man.
Yeah, this is fun.
That's really what you want to do. I mean, like you should seriously think about like any other major. Come on, dude. Anyway, next question. Let's stop talking about you. Let's start talking about the important thing, which is me. So, what's the next question?
So, ZZZ, he also said that profit is good for competition and innovation, but that it's not necessary to improve a product. I think that's retarded, but do you think there's any validity to that statement?
Wait, what?
Profit is good for innovation and competition, but it's not necessary for those 2 things.
Well, I mean, that's kind of stupid. Like, it depends on what you're talking about when, what number you're talking about when you say profit. So often when Marxists say profit, they, instead of, meaning like the absolute amount of net income after all overhead, what they really mean as any money that doesn't go to who they believe morally deserves the money. So if you're a laborer, then they believe that you deserve that money. If you're working on the factory line, then you deserve that money. But, if you're like a salesperson, if you're dealing with contract law, if you're dealing with management, if you're working on quarterly returns, working on stuff like that, the stuff that actually runs the fucking business while the laborers are out on the field, that allows them to have that job, you don't deserve that. To a Marxist, for some reason, that is not a justifiable form of labor, because it doesn't represent the kind of laborer that they like. So if you mean that kind of profit, then basically shut the fuck up, you Marxist scum. I have a free helicopter ride for you. The reason why CEOs get paid so much money is because they provide so much service to the company. They keep that company fucking running. And for some reason, I don't understand this like disconnect that well, the laborers, all you need to do to run a factory is have some guy working on the line. Okay, how are you going to run logistics? How are you going to set up sales? How are you going to set up material? How are you going to do research and development? How are you going to do any of this other shit? You have to put money back into the organization in order to keep running and keep being competitive and keep producing something. They have this simpleton's view of capitalism, and it's because Marx was a layabout his entire fucking life and has never had a job, much like Bernie Sanders. So I mean, it's just, this is the kind of stupid shit mentality you have when you think that you deserve to be in charge, and for some reason middle management doesn't deserve to exist. Now, if you're talking about profit in the other term, which is all net incomes after overhead, and other expenses, then is profit necessary for competition? I mean, not necessarily. You could run your organization as a nonprofit. You could run your. You have to have research and development. You have to have middle management. But I mean, talking about this is as like a thought, a sort of a thought game, you know, like a questioning the validity of this in a hypothetical way. You could have an organization that runs at zero profit, but is still, you know, but is still competitive, you know. It's
Yeah.
just you would either have all of that money being reinvested into research and development, so it's not actually profit, or you would have you would maximize all forms of labor and other stuff to compete with other corporations and steal their labor. I mean, it's possible, but it's just not a probable. It's not probable because that also would hamper your ability to get investment, because without profit in the forms of I forget the term. What's the term when you buy a stock, but dividends in the form of dividends, without something in the form of dividends, or without, you know, growth, and growth is usually measured with profits. You know, if your stock isn't, if your company isn't going to getting massive profits, then it's not very likely that your stock is going to go up in price. I mean, it's possible that it would if you're just reinvesting all of it, but it might hurt investments. But in the actual running of it, it's entirely possible to run without a profit and be successful.
Yeah, it'd be a very tough go of it, I'm pretty sure. So the next thing is, what actually happens, or what theoretically would happen if the workers controlled the means of production?
I mean, that's kind of a silly question. Like you're asking me to like describe what happened, but the problem is that what does that even mean?
So,
like, I mean, okay, let's if you actually want me to go up about this, let me ask this question: who are the workers, and what is the means of production?
So I guess in that term, it would be the workers would be anybody employed at the thing. I don't know, because the socialist dude, he kept mentioning this, and I was like, well, I don't understand what that means. Like, does it mean if everybody has like a stock in the company, and then they own everything that happens to the company, and they decide what happens to it?
Well, I mean, we actually had this conversation with ZZ. I don't know if it was on that one, but it was, what if just the corporation was owned by the employees? But then that corporation would still be run at a profit, because you're going to want a profit. And also a profit is like necessary. And this is something that I simply don't understand, is why don't Marxists view profit as legitimate? Like if you are working on something, like a shoe or any product, then there is something about the genesis of that product that is valuable to people. Like an iPhone, right? Like the invention of the iPhone revolutionized the way we view phones. It really did. I mean, it's sad to say, but the iPhone really did revolutionize the way we use phones and the way we interact with the internet, because now half of all internet traffic is like from a fucking phone. So that has had this huge impact on people's lives. But for some reason, the value of that genius, the value of that invention into a Marxist is zero, because the Marxist runs an economic understanding that is stuck in the 19th century, where there are no innovations, there are no inventions. You're basically producing steel and fucking wagon wheels, you know? It's like there's no research and development, there's no genius, there's no invention, there's no industrial progress happening. And for some reason, they don't view that as a legitimate source. So even, I mean, there's like an anecdote. The Marxists took over portions of Catalonia during the Spanish Civil War, and I'm pretty sure this is true. Don't quote me on this. I'm not a historian, but the workers there who were working in the factories, for some reason, for some unknown reason, wanted to work at a profit. Why would the workers want to work in their own factories that they now own at a profit? Aren't they asking to exploit themselves? Well, yes, they are, because people like money. People enjoy money. People enjoy seeing their products being sold at a profit, and you're not going to work for basically no money. You believe that there is value in what you do. There is value in the genius of human ingenuity, and that value is often expressed in profit. So if there was a corporation that was owned by the people, like I think Winco is a good example of this. I shop there all the fucking time. It's like owned by the employees. They would still run it as a profit. It would simply change the power structure a little bit. So instead of the shareholders being separate from the employees, the shareholders would be the employees. However, then there's the question, would it actually be better for the employees? And that's, like a good question, because if it was better for the employees, then everybody would be working at Winco. And if it was better for the consumer, everybody would be shopping at Winco. And that's simply not true. So if it was better, if communism was the best way, if workers owning the means of production was the best way to run society, it would already exist, because we have a free market where it's plausible for that to exist. The free market, by the way, is so ingenuous that it is the only market where communism and capitalism can both coincide. Communism can exist within the free market. You can go and join your own fucking commune. You can form your own corporation and have every single employee be a partial owner of that corporation. You can go and do it. Go and be the master of your own universe. Go be a communist somewhere else. You can go and do that. But, for some reason, they understand, like implicitly, well, that won't work unless the government forces everybody to do it. And, maybe that's a good sign that you're a fucking retard. I don't know.
So I was looking through the comment section of that ZZ debate, and my God.
You're really focused on this, man, aren't you? Like, you really hate communists. This is something that's in, like, present life, huh?
Yeah, I really hate commies.
So are the commies there? Are they a lot of like the Mexican radicals, or is it like white bourgeois, like a champagne socialists?
It's both. So usually they're like, "Why are you a capitalist? Like, did you come from a privileged family?" It's like, I got stabbed a few years ago. What the fuck? So, like, I almost died. Like, and then they're like, "Well, I mean." Well, then that's, you're an anomaly or something. It's like, no, most people, I would venture to say, most people think like me. You have to work for a living. Like, where are you getting these ideas that you should have everything handed to you? Mommy and daddy aren't the fucking world. And so I would say it's mostly middle class Hispanics and then like white out of towners that come in that I guess just want to be a part of the in group, because the people around here can be fucking brutal, man. Because I came from the north, and they were like, "Oh, you talk like a white boy," I was like, "Because I'm good at English," and they're like, "You're not Catholic enough," because I'm an atheist, and like, "Your mom's a whore because she's not a churchgoer," and so like being on the outside, it can be pretty bad.
Yeah, no, that's something that the liberal. That's something that people don't really understand, is that like it's not as bad as Europe is as far as the segregation of society is, because Islam is a whole nother dimension. But Mexicans and, the actual majority of the illegal immigration we get is from like El Salvador. I think it's Central America. I think that's where the majority is coming at this point. I may be wrong about that. But they have an entirely different culture with different cultural norms and they don't believe in the existence of other cultures. So when they're coming here, they're imposing their own versions of reality on us. And if for some reason the bourgeois intellectual white twats that support it don't understand that, the recent immigrants, the ones that came here legally, and the working poor, the native working poor, are the people who have to bear the brunt of these Hispanics coming in here and trying to change our culture. And it's something that they simply don't understand, because they don't view they view poor people in this paternalistic sense. Yes. And it's disgusting in the way they do it, and I really despise it. They view poor people in this paternalistic sense where, don't worry, poor people, I will help you. I will save you. I am the savior of the poor race. And then what they do is they seek these policies which fuck over poor people again and again and again. I mean, whether it's welfare policies which create dependency, or whether it's immigration policies which has this long-term wage compression. I mean, it's always, you know, I'm going to fuck you over, but don't worry. You're going to tax me, so you're going to fuck me even worse. I want you to bang my wife. You know, it's that kind of shit. It's that kind of self-loathing, moral aggrandizing that has set up this circle of pathological altruism. And that's why I'm going to tell you, of all of the liberals, I despise white liberals the most, because I hate them. Because the thing is this is what, you know, when talking about the race aspect of culture, and again, nothing of this has to do with genetics. It all has to do with culture and rational self-interest. So there is simply this understood nature among minorities that they are not American. And I don't want to say that they aren't and they can never be. They can be. But there's just this simple understanding. Well, I'm not American because I don't pay taxes, because I don't have the same kind of American culture, because I don't like baseball, you know, whatever it is. There's, you know, that sense. And it's they understand that they, in order to raise their own well-being, and what they're doing at the moment are leeching off of America in a purely tax form. Now, again, I'm not saying this is what all Hispanics do. I'm not saying this is what all the left does. But the left in general imposes the ability for people who don't produce, who don't give to the tax base, who don't see themselves as American, to thrive off of the backs of people who do. And I think that that's the divide between conservative and liberal that we can see in the United States the most, is that people who are conservatives believe they are a part of the in-group of what is America, whether they're black conservatives or Hispanic conservatives or whatever. They believe they are hardworking, they produce, they are giving tax to the country, and that's what makes them American. While people who are liberals don't believe they are, because they are taking. Because they take from America. And for some reason, being on welfare doesn't actually give you any kind of sense of love for America. Somehow giving someone money doesn't instill with them any kind of moral virtues. It's almost as if people aren't angels, and people aren't going to love you if you throw money at them. I mean, it's funny how these paternal left-wing douchebags view minorities like their own children. If only I can throw more money at you, maybe you'll love me. No, that's not how it works. They're not going to love you if you keep throwing money at these minorities. What they have to do is they have to independently choose to accept the morals and ethics of America, the Protestant work ethic, the belief in the goodness of freedom and liberty and individualism on an individual sense. Then that's the thing, is that they simply don't. They don't. And that's the problem. It's not from a racial background. It's not like, it's the white people who are genetically predisposed to be American. It's this cultural background that's reinforced, unfortunately, with this idea of racial hegemony and racial self-interest. So that's the problem that liberals don't want to understand. They don't want to understand that this racial diversity that they're pushing is at its core anti-American, not because black people are not American, but because they are pushing a mentality and a culture that does not see America as a positive good, that sees America and the imposition of American values as a detriment to themselves. And that is why that's why I'm a conservative, and that's why I hate liberals, basically. And that's why it's also why the race question is so confusing, because, you have to abide by that line, because there is an aspect of racial self-interest in it. There's an aspect of racial self-interest in black people voting for Obama. There's an aspect of racial self-interest in white people voting for John McCain, because white people pay more taxes and black people take out more taxes. That's simply it. And that liberal dialogue, this division of America by race, has happened because liberals have instilled this paternalistic view where they're simply throwing money at minorities in order to get them to love them. But then minorities, for some reason, get this entitlement complex where they feel that they need to be anti-American in order to survive in America to justify their own existence as what amounts to a leech on America's tax system. And that's simply, I mean, I'm using bad terms. I'm using, these are mean words. I'm too extreme. These are mean words I'm using about those poor defenseless minorities. But I mean, this is just the truth. This is just the truth of how it's working. None of this is biological. I haven't seen any evidence for it being biological. It's simply this understanding of racial self-interest. And it's something that liberals will never understand about multiculturalism and multicultural societies.
Yeah, and it blows their mind when I'm like, yeah, Trump's my dude. And they're like, what? How could you? And it's
yeah,
just,
exactly.
You know,
how could you, my little child? We gave you all that fucking welfare, you dirty fucking Mexican. It's that paternal instinct. They can't understand it. They can't understand that they are the disease. They have no ability to understand that liberals in America are killing America. And that's why I don't think there should be a Jewish question. I think there should be a Californian question. We should gas everybody from California. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I like that, the Californian question.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it's just a lot of the time, it's like when I use their terms and kind of invert them a little bit, like they say people of color, I just say colored, or they say the POC, and I'll say POC, and then spell it with like a KKK. They fucking hate that. Yeah. Or they're like, oh, but we need these things, but it's got to be separate. I'm like, yes, separate but equal, exactly. And they'll get 3/5 of everything we get. And yeah, they don't like how it sounds when you put it in those terms, I guess. Anyway, 2 questions before we get to the chat, because there's one guy that's really pissed that you're. I guess it seems like they're answering
to the chat. Don't pay attention.
Okay, yeah, because they're answering his questions, but he's like, no, I want to hear it from Naked Ape, and it's just like.
Don't pay attention to the fucking chat, man. The chat's always cancer.
Yeah. All right. So, why doesn't communism have the same stigma as Nazism? Which I think Nazism is just democratic socialism when it gets power.
I mean, not necessarily. Nazism has a lot of a racial mythos attached to it, so it's not necessarily just democratic socialism. I think it's because. I think it's because of the propaganda campaign that we had after World War II. And I simply think it's as simple as audiovisual versus text. So there aren't reels of videotape showing us the Holodomor, right? We can't, there isn't, a book written by the Anne Frank of Ukraine, right? We don't have a face to put to it. I think at the very core level, it's because we don't have a documentary that's shown to us when we're 13 years old about how terrible communist Russia was. But we do have the same thing for the Holocaust, because the amount of dedication we put into putting the issue to rest, whether or not we were on the good side of history in that war, was immense. So we put a lot of effort into, into documenting the war crimes. There was the Nuremberg trials, which cemented all of this in a very historical way. And there were the tapes of the Holocaust, and we could see it, we can hear it. You could practically taste the death out of these death camps from those visual aids. So that's generally why I think it comes. That's one of the main reasons. Also, you have to consider that a lot of, intellectuals in the United States, they say that religion is the opiate of the masses. Well, Marxism is the opiate of the elites. So these people, they love to see themselves on that side of history because, they're uneducated, spoiled twats who've never had a real job in their lives and don't understand how capitalism works because they've never interacted with it in any meaningful way beyond ordering books off of Amazon. So, I mean, it's that kind of mentality that they have where they're not going to question communism because for some reason they see themselves on that side of history. So I think it's those two reasons combined.
So I think something very telling about liberals is that they will scream bloody murder if you say anything about their protected class of the uneducated and poor. But when it comes to like rednecks or something that they assume are the only people that voted for Trump, they'll talk shit all day. And it's just like, wait, but they're also poor and uneducated. Like, what's the difference here?
Well, they're white.
Yeah, the whites.
Well, I mean, that's just it, is that liberalism doesn't understand the genesis of racism. And I don't like racism. I don't think it's a good thing. But racism stems out of poverty and desperation. Like, once you remove all forms of civilization from a people, you know, once you remove all of the niceties and the drapings of culture and society, people move back to the primitive instincts. And we simply have within us a primitive instinct towards racial understanding. So a lot of poor white people will be racist. It's simply a true. Like, you look at American History X, and it's a very accurate way of describing racism. You know, white Americans were racist or are racist when they're poor because there's nothing else to turn to. You know, there's nobody speaking on their behalf until Donald Trump. But no, it's like you also go to prisons. Once you remove people from all of the niceties and drapings of society, you put them in a cage and you treat them like animals, well, they're going to turn to animalistic instincts. And that's why you have racial gangs in prisons. It's nothing surprising. It really isn't. And liberals are against racism when it's white racism, because they view the lens of history through either a culturally relativist or multicultural understanding, where they view all cultures as equal. Therefore, if you say other cultures aren't equal, then you are bad. But for some reason, they only apply that to white people, you know, because they also view it through a multicultural society, where they see it as a version of the white man's burden, where we have this impetus, this moral impetus to have open societies because it's better for those poor brown people that we let them in and let them have their own culture, without realizing that the reason why those societies are terrible is because of their culture, you know? So yeah, it is an interesting conversation. I find that dialectic interesting too.
I actually lost a friend one time over American History X because we were watching it at my apartment, and I paused it right after the curb stomp, and I said, that's as good as the movie gets, so let's just stop. And he did not find that funny at all. Which made me laugh more, but that probably... I
know, dude. You are you're a cool guy. You're a cool dude. I wish you success in the future. I really do.
Thank you. So there's this other question that you had asked, and I think this was probably one of the best turning on the heads of an argument that I've seen of the whole socialism thing. This was with the live stream with Spinosaurus Kin. You asked, so why can't you survive on $20? And this is, I guess you based it on the idea that government can tell someone when they have enough money. TJ Kirk does it all the time. And so then you asked, why is it your right to decide upon your living costs? You know, when other people, you're in the 1% of the world, whereas other people, they live on $20. So yeah, is that a fair question to ask?
I mean, I think it is. I think it's a fair question to ask. I think it's a fair question because I think what it really does is it opens up the reason why liberals exist and socialists exist. They don't view, like, this is a problem that I have with people arguing for the minimum wage. They don't view poverty in an absolute sense. They don't view poverty as a form of absolute deprivation. Like, I view poverty as you as a human biological organism are not able to survive, right? You are having difficulty living as a biological creature, where they view poverty as this relative, this relative privation. So I am poor because my neighbor is so rich, and that's why he needs to give me some of his shit. And then I just point out, you know, you're the rich one here, man. Mm-hmm. You are the wealthy one. So why can't the poor, the actual poor of the world, the 1 billion or 2 billion people who are living on $1 a day, why can't they take all your fucking money? Why is it that you get to decide when you're in poverty, and you get to decide when somebody is making too much, but they can't come in and pull you down to their level? why is it okay for you? And I think that question is more built towards that understanding, towards dividing the understanding of why socialists exist in the West. And it exists just because of greed and impotent rage. It's because they don't understand that they are the cause of their own problems, that they just have a bad work ethic for the vast majority of people. And I mean this, poor people are poor because of their own faults. If you're poor, the majority of people who are poor deserve to be poor. It's simply the truth. There's a study out from the Brookings Institution, which is a left-leaning institution, that shows that there are only 3 things you need to do to not be poor your entire life: high school diploma, full-time job, married and have kids after you're 21. That's it. Those 3 things. So if you are poor, you fucked up. It's on you. It's not my fault you're poor. You're poor because you had 2 kids with 2 different baby daddies, and you can't find a job because you dropped out of high school to breastfeed them. You know, that's your fucking fault. Ain't my fault. You know? Yeah. So, but they view poverty in terms of relative privation instead of in terms of absolute privation. And that's generally what that question was trying to get at. But, you know, Spino wasn't able to really come up with an answer. He just kept on, you know, waffling around. Yeah, I don't know what your Republicans are going to find interesting about this. We're talking about stupid YouTube bullshit. You're really into this YouTube bullshit, though, aren't you? Like, this is big stuff. Yeah.
Because I think it's interesting because these are the arguments that I hear in class.
Yeah.
And so we need to provide counter arguments, or at least a different mode of thought. Because, you know, in any given class that I have, of 30 people, I'm the only conservative, or at least
just wait until Generation Z. Generation Z will save the white race. Generation Z is the most conservative. is the most conservative since the silent generation. So I mean, I think that Generation Z is gonna be the savior of conservatism, the savior of American values. At least I hope so.
And I like that because I think it's going to be the new trend, because right-wingers are dominating the conversation on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I think if media continues the way it's going, the younger generations is just going to get more and more conservative.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I'm like, please, because sometimes in class, after I argue with the professor or something, and then it gets to the point where they can't argue something, then they're like, well, let's move on. After the class, like, well, I never thought about that way. And it's just like, well, yeah, because you've been fucking force-fed everything and nobody ever argues. Because
yeah, exactly. That's why, you know, I gotta love you guys, Republicans, especially in the fucking El Paso, because I mean, conservatives now, I mean, I don't want to, you know, the Coach Paul Joseph Watson, you know, the mainstream media, conservatives are the new counterculture. And I don't want to just like quote that, but it is like a truth, because we're challenged on everything. Conservatives have this incredibly strong intellectual and moral basis for their beliefs, because we're constantly fucking challenged on everything. You know, being a conservative in our culture, we're constantly challenged on all of our beliefs. We constantly have to think about it. Well, liberals just, you know, they waft away in their secure little bubble, surrounded by the good boy police of John Oliver and Samantha Bee, stroking them off about how morally good they are and how all the laugh tracks follow their every life. You know, it's that kind of bubble that they live in, and that's why I think, you know, conservatives will be the next wave of political power will crash in the direction of conservatism. Hopefully, that's what I hope.
Actually, that was one of my favorite introductions to one of your videos I've ever seen, the good boy points. It's
like that?
Ooh, good boy points. Getting all of mommy's chicken candies.
I actually really like that video. That was the video that got me interviewed by NPR. That was a good video. It didn't get as much visibility as I would have hoped, because I think I did a good job describing the alt-right in that video. But yeah. Anyway, did you have any more questions?
Yeah, this last one, because I get this all the time, and no matter how I refute it, they just walk away like, no, you're just an idiot. So the communists tend to use a proportionality argument when it comes to talk about the progressive tax rate. And I just want to know, is there any validity to that argument? You know, the whole, well, 10% of someone's wealth at $1,000 is way more proportionally.
Well, I mean, there actually is an argument, but the thing is that you have to argue about absolute deprivation at that point. So, you know, if you're taxing someone $1,000 who makes like $1,000 a month, then, you know, that's taking food out of their mouths. While if you're taxing someone 10% of their income at $1 million a year, you know, whatever, that's taking their Atlantic cruise out of their mouth. You know, it's not going to be this form of absolute deprivation. So there is an argument on the basis of government charity that we shouldn't be taking food out of people's mouths. You know, there is a good argument on that level. However, the problem is when they start going, you know, comparing the middle class to the upper class, they start saying, well, it should be more. Well, then the question is, well, how much of their money do you deserve? And I actually have thought about this, and I think that our progressive tax structure would be a lot better off if it wasn't on income base, because income doesn't actually describe how much work you're putting into. Like somebody who makes $60,000 might be working 80 hours a week at $13 an hour, you know, something like that, right? They could be working so fucking hard and you're taxing so much from them. Why are you taxing this person? Which is why I think that it makes more sense just to, I wouldn't increase the payroll tax, but I would have a tax based on hourly income rather than based on income, net income. So that's actually what I would say to that. That's like a hypothesis that I've had for some while. If you actually want to make the fairness argument about it, then that makes more sense. But I mean, that's where I come from. So there is validity to it. The problem is that they don't understand how people who make a lot of money work hard for that money. So they do. So there is validity to it at the lower ends, but at the mid to upper ends, the counter argument is that you're making it harder for somebody who works hard to get the money that they deserve. And then you could just pull out, you know, what about the single mother who works 2 jobs to make $60,000 a year to try and pay for the house and everything to provide for her children? She doesn't deserve to be taxed at the same level as somebody who who's, you know, the child of millionaires who went to get a degree in history and has a trust fund. You know, she shouldn't be taxed at the same rate because she works super hard. Why are you judging people only by the amount of income instead of judging people by the amount of et cetera? And that's when you could either argue for like a flat tax, but I actually think that a wage tax is better. You know, tax on, like, you know, the percentage of money earned in an hour makes more sense than, you know, just total amount of income. That it makes more sense to me. I think it would actually be less too.
I've never actually heard that argument before.
Yeah, well, it's because I'm much more intelligent than everybody else. No, it's because I have a lot of time to think about this shit, and that's just something that I thought about. Why isn't it like that? It makes a lot more sense. It was actually when I was thinking about the difference between capital gains and an FTT, a financial trade tax, and I was like, well, you know, why don't we do this? Do the same kind of philosophical quandary on income tax? Why do we have income tax? It's kind of silly. Anyway, any other questions you had for me, boy?
No, I think we're all good here. I think some people in the chat are gonna be a little upset, but I mean, you can ask.
We can answer some questions if you had any that you saw that were really good. Go ahead and do that.
No, it's because most of them got answered. I mean, I think there was one guy that was talking about you being a primate. Okay, so this Belforus Knight, he's asking, how do you feel about economics of interstate American transitions? I want Texas to be an oil state and California as a tech state.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I guess he's asking about specialization of regional economies.
I guess so, but that makes no fucking sense at all. What's the question? I don't get it. Let's skip it.
Okay, then there's. Oh, he's just asking a bunch of shit in all caps.
Yeah, you really should just block that guy. Just block him. Block him now.
Block him off. Never mind. Do you have any final words for everybody?
Yeah, I wanted to say that Ted Cruz is a fucking serial killer with the face of a goddamn scarecrow. He will never be president, ever. And he doesn't deserve to be president. And I loved every second of Donald Trump squishing his hopes and dreams and watching him squirm with his weaselly little used car salesman face. I hate Ted Cruz. I despise him, and I despise all of his followers. And the gay little bow ties you guys wore at CPAC last year, those have been replaced with MAGA hats. I'm going to tell you, we are the conservative party. We are the conservative party, and we will sow salt into the ground so you Ted Cruz people will never find anything of value in conservatism again. Anyway,
I gotta get that in an answering machine.
I gotta take this call, so I'll talk to you later.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us. That was Naked Ape. I'm Isaac Yepes with the UTEP College Republicans. Have a great day.